All right, so for today, I've made 4 or 5 videos. I can't remember. I think I've made 4 videos, one short, a couple of other things for my channel. Once I get to this point, and I've been working this many hours on YouTube, I've already been to the gym at 8, I've already been to the gym at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm tired, I'm out of creativity. I will often go into my old videos to try and put something together. But sometimes rather than rehashing that, I will come over here on YouTube and I will click on a video in here. And in my opinion, I can turn any video into one of my style videos, right? So I went in here and I do what I normally do. Oops, I don't have to do that again. I will take a transcript from here and then I will pop it into ChatGPT, and that's where I will get my next video idea. But today I couldn't do that because this was so bad. Truly, one of the worst things I've ever put into ChatGPT. It couldn't make a video from an entitled rich person. So after I put it all together, I couldn't use it because it was something you guys wouldn't listen. It was something I couldn't bring myself to use. But that's the formula that I use for creating most of my videos. And most of my videos are videos based on my own videos because they provide the best material for this channel. So I learned something today. Not every video that is highly recommended with thousands of views. That lady has one video with nearly 1 million views. And she's bad, at least in my opinion. But guess what? The algorithm is rewarding her with $10,000 a month. While I try to scrape by on a fraction of that. Anyhow, today's title is Why America Replaced Hope with Rotisserie Chicken. That most likely is not going to be the title that this video ends up having. I always go back, edit it, I do exactly what I showed you guys. I go back into my own videos, select the transcript, pop it back into ChatGPT, and then come up with a different title. But that may not happen right away, so who knows? That's why every video that I make is so random. Because I have no idea what you guys are seeing in the background, because the backgrounds are created with Krea.ai, and it recommends what it thinks you guys want to see in the background. So I was thinking of trying something different, but the formulas pretty much stayed the same unless something dramatic happens. I think I'm going to keep it this way because my script for writing things has evolved over the past 6 months. It has changed dramatically. It used to be really long. Now all I have is title, script creation, generate 3 topics, create an introduction, conclusion, create a thumbnail, create a background, generate a description, add a comment, and then I have a list of different hair that the AI generated images can have, because for some reason there's absolutely no creativity whatsoever. Every time it uses the same description for eye, hair, and clothing. For some reason it thinks that everyone that's broke is wearing a hoodie and is wearing sweatpants. I don't know why AI thinks that way, but that's what I have to change in every video, or else that's what you would get: oversized hoodies and sweatpants. With that said, let's get into our first monologue here. You ever notice how rotisserie chicken became the unofficial meal of the working poor? Like you didn't plan on eating it, you just ran out of money, time, and the will to cook. It's hot, it's cheap, it doesn't ask questions, unlike your landlord or your boss. This video isn't about food, it's about why Americans replaced our hope with something that expires in 3 days and comes with a puddle of sadness grease. Wow, sadness grease. I didn't know that that was a thing. I thought sadness grease was what's on my forehead at the end of a 8-hour day. That's what I call sadness grease. But apparently sadness grease exists at the bottom of the plastic bag that comes with your rotisserie chicken. I Not certain why it chose this particular area to focus on, but let's hope that ChatGPT gets better than this. Moving on to talking point number one. When gyms, grocery stores, and fast food chains stopped being open late, it wasn't about public health. It was about keeping the poor from loitering. Late night hours were quietly erased because broke people had nowhere else to go, and corporations didn't want the optics of poverty on their property. Convenience died the moment homelessness became visible. That is so true. During the pandemic, there were so many areas that were just inundated with homeless people. Every 24-hour fast food restaurant looked like it was a homeless shelter. The Taco Bell, the Burger King, the Jack in the Box, even the Kroger's eating area. Because during the 80s, it was very fashionable, I guess, or a thing to do, is to go to your local grocery store where there happened to be a restaurant built right into the side of it. The, the Kroger's where I shop, when I was a little kid, when I was 6 years old, that Kroger's was actually called a Smitty's. And it had a restaurant that was built right into it. My parents would eat there all the time. But as our society degraded, the dining experience began to degrade along with it. Fast food restaurants are struggling to keep their doors open. In fact, the other day, I was sitting with a friend at a juice bar, and she pointed across the street at a restaurant that she thought she wanted to go eat at, and it was called On the Borders. And I said, according to the Epic Economist, that restaurant went out of business like 6 months ago, and she didn't believe me. And so I had to open up the app and show her that that place was no longer active. But like many other restaurants, there are very few places where people are going to where the food isn't going to make you sick. Somehow we became a society where the quality of food was starting to mimic Taco Bell. Because remember, in the future, all restaurants are Taco Bell. But what they didn't say was that in the future, all restaurants have the quality of food of a Taco Bell while still having sit down diner experience prices. I don't know how hard Taco Bell has tried to change its menu to try and get people to come back. Because as one comment once said, Taco Bell used to be a treat. Now it's a punishment. In fact, I would say that nearly all poor people food right now is a punishment. The other day, I think it was last week, we went to go eat at a Mediterranean restaurant, and she ordered this dessert, and she put it up to my nose, and I couldn't smell anything. She tried to smell it, and it didn't smell like anything. I told her I most likely lost my sense of taste and smell during the bug time, because nothing since then has ever tasted good or smelled good or actually made me want to eat it. This morning, after I went to the gym, I went across the parking lot to her favorite restaurant, to her favorite, fast, well, healthy restaurant. I bought a breakfast burrito, and it was like eating cardboard that cost $10. At the end of it, I was like, what did I spend my money on? This is neither good nor a decent portion. The quality and quantity of this product are very, very poor. And you know what that reflects? Is the quality of life for most people in our society is equally poor. Well, I was walking around in the Kroger's after the gym because I had a few things to get, some protein cookies, a couple of bananas. These are things that I keep on my nightstand. If I wake up at night and I have the munchies, I'll toss in a banana, which is low calorie, or a protein cookie for additional calories. And I was walking through the aisles and something really stood out. I mean, there was like a 55-year-old man, looked like a mess addict, just wandering through the store like he didn't belong there. He happened to end up at the self checkout next to me. All he had were 3 cans of Pringles, a microwavable dinner, and 2 cans of Chef Boyardee. I'm sure it cost him like $50, but still, this is what grocery shopping has turned into. I was about to ask the cashier, it's like, do you know when people come into the store that don't have any money and that they're just coming into the store to wander around? Because when I worked in retail, it was part of every day. You would see the same people that would come and browse the shelves every day like they were going to buy something. And at the end of it, they walked out with nothing, or maybe just a Powerade, or most likely just ate whatever they needed to eat inside the store and just walked out and hid the packaging. It happens. Anyhow, that was a really, really long start to the video. But let's move on to talking point number 2. Rotisserie chicken has become the symbol of working class exhaustion. Cheap, fast, warm for a second, and just enough to fool your stomach into silence. It's not food. It's a coping on a budget. One bird to rule them all, and in your gut, bind them. That's hilarious. One bird to rule them all. Oh my gosh! The other night I was watching the story of KFC, and I had never thought of it, but most of the animals that we consume, and you're gonna think about this too, we only consume the girl of that species. I was shocked to find out that KFC has its own meat production plants. It literally grows them from an egg up to 6 weeks, and then they go to the slicer. But every bird you've ever put in your mouth has been a lady bird. Same thing with the meat that we eat. We eat the cows, not the bulls. And please correct me if I'm wrong, or I hope this is different inside of other species, that we eat the male of other species, because otherwise it seems cruel. Like, why would we only exclusively eat one gender? And I'm sure it has something to do with breeding bulls or something to that effect. But if you know, please put it down into the comments to enlighten me, because I know nothing about this and I am fascinated. I'm sure I could ask ChatGPT, but I had no idea that I was going to end up on this exact subject today, because my videos are so random. So, the symbol of the working class as a rotisserie chicken is a very powerful emblem, because I often talk about how going to work at your job feels like you're in a chicken costume all day long. There's no dignity in it, there's no advancement in it. We look at each other and we laugh, because you know that Bob in accounting is still making the same amount as Susie Rottencrotch in HR. We're all making unlivable wages. That's what we all have in common. So it doesn't seem wrong to put your workers into not only a chicken costume, but let's take it one step further in the humiliation. Let's make you into a rotisserie chicken, where we all have to walk around in rotisserie chicken costumes and pretend. And then, on top of all of this, on top of all of the humiliation of the current workplace, you still have to act professionally. That's how I feel about being forced into polo shirts and khakis and the whole idea of business casual. It is just symbolic. It has nothing to do with your job other than the control of saying that today you millennials team have to wear a chicken costume, because that's what's considered professional. Acting professional while you're in a chicken costume casts into light the absolute disgusting control that the Death Star has over your life. Can you imagine showing up tomorrow at 8 a.m. and having to unzip the back of your chicken costume so Fleece can have a piece? That's how bad our society has gotten. Because these wages, these working conditions, the way most of us are treated in a society that believes that we should be in a chicken costume with zippers on the back and zippers on the front, is absolutely a perfect analogy for the way that the working class is being exploited to the nth degree. Because it used to be that only people at the bottom, right? The people working in those minimum wage jobs that we pretend don't exist. But the sadness grease that comes along with it. The sadness grease is actually the sweat that you get inside of the chicken costume. The sad thing is that they've convinced us this is normal. That's why this channel exists. That's why this character, you guys know as Millennial Steam exists inside of a system that is clearly unfair and very biased towards the people that can do nothing about it. When people were marching for a $15 minimum wage, I questioned the reality of seeing that on the news. How could any class of people really think that a $15 an hour minimum wage was even close to what we needed to survive? Because when you have a federal minimum wage of $7.25, what does that say? It says that the government is perfectly fine with you living in wretched poverty. Talking point number 3. There's no such thing as a career anymore. Just corporate trapdoors disguised as entry-level jobs. You're not hired because they see your potential. You're hired because they know you're scared of eviction. And the second you stop smiling through it, they'll replace you with another desperate soul and hand them a 25-cent raise like it's a blessing. I don't know how the Death Star does this, how it hands someone that works so hard a 25-cent raise, and then they look at you, they stare at you, they knock on the side of your head, waiting for the gratitude, thanking them so much for the 25-cent raise, while at the same time telling you to put the fries in the bag, little bro. Like, they know that it means nothing. Like, Mello, I think last week got a $2 an hour raise, and she was really happy about it. I don't think I've met anyone in the last few years who's gotten that high of a raise. Why? Because they don't believe in it. If you won't do it with a master's degree and 10 years of experience, they'll find someone else who will do it for $17 an hour in a chicken costume while outside, while being pelted with rotten food. There's that guy out there that's desperate enough to do that. Because when your job security is synonymous with images of you being evicted from your apartment with nowhere to go. I was standing outside my door Friday morning, getting ready to leave for work. I was locking the door and I turned around and I looked at the apartment across from me. And there was a guy in a safety vest putting the eviction letter on someone's apartment. For some reason, I couldn't tell you what that person looked like. I've never seen them. But later on in the day, I saw someone come in, sneak into the apartment. Again, couldn't tell what they looked like. They just took the notice off the door and then they went inside. And I was like, all it takes is one bad day at work for you to miss one paycheck and you end up in eviction. It reminds me of what I told you guys last week, where the people who work with the homeless were told they're not just your clients to work with. They're what could happen to you if you lost your job. Because all of you in this room are one paycheck away from eviction. None of us have a savings account. None of us have anyone that would take care of us. Most of us will either end up on the street, living in your car, or at some point being on Skid Row. I didn't realize how close you are to homeless when you're just walking around in the office. There's little chance that you can get out of the way because these jobs are providing you with a lucrative job opportunity. They're providing you with desperation work a total lack of job security, and jobs that may come with some sort of benefits, but good luck trying to take a day off because that's not part of the equation. They expect you to be there every day, whether you like it or not. Like I've told you guys 100 times. My friend got fired last year because she wanted to go visit her elderly parents. The megastar said, or the Death Star said no. Still trying to get used to this name. Again, if you guys haven't heard this, you guys won't hear this for a couple of days because I got this from Claire Somewhere's channel this morning where she was talking about how how they referred to Amazon's warehouse, the Death Star. All right, let's get into our closing monologue. We didn't give up on dreams. Dreams gave up on paying rent. Now we survive on rotisserie chicken, PTO guilt, and the fantasy that next week might be less humiliating than this one. But if we're all this tired, this broke, and this fed up, maybe we aren't broken. We're just done pretending this is normal. And honestly, that's the first real hope I've felt in a long time. Owning nothing and being happy has been they've been trying to shove that down our throat for years now. When you go to work every single day and you still have nothing, you live like I do, in a tiny little hole with nothing here. You sleep there, and then you wake up and you go to Pound Town. Then you come home and you sleep there and you go back. Fast forward to that time 60 years, and that's your life as a proletariat. And the only way that that's going to change is if you get fed up with eating rotisserie chicken. And for a treat, you get cup of noodle. This is not sustainable for us, people. And it's up to you to decide if you're willing to show up at work and cook in your chicken costume and enjoy the sadness grease that forms between your cheeks.